Hey guys, it's Chris at Highline Guitars and you're watching another one of my YouTube guitar building videos. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I hope that by the end of this video, you might consider subscribing. Today what I'm going to be talking about is the next project that I'm planning to work on. And as I kind of teased in a previous video, it's going to be a neck through guitar with a bit of a twist. So I think what I'll do in this episode is kind of introduce you to the project and where things stand at the moment. So let me bring you in a little closer. We're going to jump on the computer and I'll show you what I'm working on. Okay, so what I have here is the 3D mock-up of the guitar, the complete design. This has all the components, the body, the neck, and the fretboard. And as I kind of teased in that earlier episode, you can see how the neck through portion is a little bit different than what you might expect. Typically, the neck through portion runs straight through to the back of the body, and then each half is then glued to the side of that tenon. However, what I've decided to do is take advantage of having a CNC machine by making the shape of that tenon something unique. That's why I'm saying it has a bit of a twist, or a squiggle, if you will. So what I'll do here is I'm going to move this portion out of the way a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. And as you can see, that tenon has that unique shape to it. So that's kind of what the plan is. I'm going to carve this with my CNC machine, and then the two halves will kind of fit together like a puzzle. The reason for this is purely aesthetic. Although, if you wanted to get technical, when it comes to tone and sustain here, there is a great deal more surface where the body halves will join the neck than if I had just a straight edge that's planed smooth. So having the squiggle increases that surface area. Does that make a difference? Maybe. We'll never really know, because the only way to test it would be to make two identical guitars, one with this squiggle feature and then one without. I'm not going to bother doing that. I just don't think it's going to be worth the effort to do that. So this is kind of what it's going to look like when the two halves are moved away from that neck. You can kind of see how that's going to work. Now, when I started designing this, I had a couple of features that I wanted to incorporate. I had some criteria. One is I wanted to keep the neck level with respect to the body. Depending on the type of bridge that I would use is what dictates whether or not the neck is going to be level or whether there's going to be a downward angle towards the nut. If I was using, for example, a tune-o-matic bridge, which sits pretty high off the body, even when it's in its lowest position, the neck has to be angled down, and that's what brings the strings down closer to the body so that you can get that full range of adjustability when it comes to setting the string action. That, however, really complicates the construction of a neck-through guitar. I like to use one-piece necks. As a result, I would have to use a really thick blank. Now I can do that. I can get, say 12-quarter thick maple, but I'm considering using some 8-quarter roasted maple. And I'll get into that a little bit here in a minute. But in order to keep the blank as thin as possible, I really need to keep the neck flat with respect to the body. So I'm going to be using a Fender style hardtail bridge, probably a hip shot hardtail. I really like those bridges, or possibly a Gato. I also like Gato. And I've heard some good things about Geiger as well, but I've never used their products, so I don't know for sure. Most likely it's going to be hip shot. But that allows me to keep that neck flat, and you can see when I look at it from the side, the neck is perfectly flat. And that's what I'm going to be shooting for with this particular guitar build. So that's going to make things a lot easier when it comes to machining this on my CNC machine. And I'm thinking of using either an ebony or a cataloche fretboard because it's very dark and has a nice contrast with it. Now, I'm not sure what I'm going to be using as far as the body wood. I think what I'm going to probably use is about a 1.5 inch thick mahogany back, and then I'm going to cap it with black poison wood. I've used that on a couple of other guitars and it looks pretty cool. I've just got it represented as a solid brown color here. That's just to kind of help us to see how this whole piece is coming together, how the body and the neck are joined. But then for the headstock, I would probably use that same black poison wood for the design. So, you know, we'll see how that works out. You know, as always, whenever I create these designs, things can change between the design phase and when I actually start to make it. But I'm pretty sure that's the direction I'm going to go with this. So what I've done so far, as you can see here, is I've created the 3D mock-up, full size, full scale. Then I have separated out these different components. And I have created my CAM files, my G-code, all that stuff. And I have built a project in Easel Pro on my computer. And this is done in the browser. I'm using Chrome here. And I've got my fretboard set up, which you can see here. And I've also got the marker dots that will be drilled in. And then I've got the perimeter shape of the fretboard. And I've also got to add in, and I don't have it here, but I need to add in the radius, which will be, that was created in G-code, which I import into this. So I still need to add that. But then I can move on to cutting the neck. And that always starts with the truss rod slot that you can see here. And this is going to be a 5-inch wide, I believe it's 40-inch long, 8/4 maple. And as I said before, I'm thinking about using a roasted figured maple, a curly maple, because I can source a piece large enough to do that. However, it's fairly expensive, and I think really what it's going to come down to is whether or not I'm willing to endure the pucker factor when it comes to carving such an expensive piece of wood on my CNC machine. So I gotta think that through. Otherwise, I would use just 8/4 Eastern Rock maple, very hard maple. But I'll do that truss rod slot first. Then I'm going to cut 2 slots for carbon fiber strips that will reinforce the neck. Then from that point, I can drill, and I don't know if you can see it on the screen here, but I've got holes for mounting that hip shot bridge. And then along with that are going to be the holes for the string through. And that's done in this carving operation. Once that's done, I can then carve. This is my first G-code file on the neck. And that's going to include the headstock as well as the pickup pockets into that blank. When that's done, I can then remove the blank, flip it over, re-register it, and then I can cut the backside. And that includes the headstock, the contour, and then that tenon, that squiggly tenon. And that's all done in one carving operation. And it'll take about 1 hour and 40 minutes to do that. So once that's done, the neck is essentially finished. I can remove the blank, cut the tabs that hold the neck into the blank, and then liberate my finished neck and tenon from that blank. And I'll probably just set that aside. Or I can install the truss rod, the carbon fiber strips, glue the fretboard on, and then I'll set it aside because now it's time to work on the body. And that will consist of clamping down the body blank, and I'll start by doing the lower half, the back side of the lower half, and I'm going to use a downcut bit to start the control cavity cover. And I always start with a downcut bit because that produces the smoothest, sharpest edges with no fuzzies and no tear out. Once I've cut that initial pass, I'll switch to an upcut bit, which does a better job of hogging out all the chips that are produced when you do that sort of carving. So I will then proceed with cutting out the rest of my control cavity, and that's into the back of the lower half of the body. Then I can start the G-code carving operations, and in this case I will be cutting the, this is the cutout contour on the back of the lower half where the neck joins the body. So that'll be done in this operation. Then when that's finished, I can flip the blank over and cut the top side of that lower half, and that includes this contour on the lower half where the neck meets the body, and this is the lower horn. Then there's the pockets for the pickups, followed by the perimeter. Once that's done, I can remove the blank, cut the tabs, and liberate that lower half from the blank, set that aside, then install the blank for the upper half, and that's going to be, I'll start again with the back side, and you can see here, this is the belly relief, as well as that front contour where the neck joins the body on the upper horn. So I'll do that carving operation. Once that's complete, I'll flip the blank over again, and I will cut the top side, which includes the forearm contour, the upper horn contour here. It's that little scalloped carving. And then the pickup pockets, which are kind of hard to see here, followed by the perimeter shape of that upper half. Once that's done, I can remove that blank, cut the tabs, and liberate the upper half of the body from that blank. Then it's time to do the last carving operation, which is going to involve making the control cavity cover. And I use typically a 1/16 of an inch diameter 2-flute spiral upcut bit when I do this. And I cut right on the perimeter line. And what that does is it makes the cavity cover about a 32nd of an inch smaller all the way around its perimeter, so that when I place it into the recess for the control cavity cover on the back, there's a little bit of breathing room all the way around. That way, if the body or the cavity cover itself expands, it's not going to get jammed into that cavity so that it can't be removed. So there's a little bit of breathing room there. But to spice it up a bit, I like to carve my logo into the back of the control cavity cover. I know a lot of guys like to do it on their headstock. I've always thought that's kind of an ego thing. I like to do it on the back. And I'll carve the Highline logo so that it fits right into the center of that control cavity cover, just like you see there. Then I'll remove that control cavity cover, and I'll cut the tabs and liberate it from the blank. Then I'm going to install a piece of, or I'll clamp down a piece of walnut to my CNC machine. And that's what's used to carve the reverse image of my logo. And once that's carved, I can then cut out that area, flip it over, and then I'll glue it into this pocket. And once that's done, I just plane away the walnut, and I have a nice inlaid logo. It's really simple to do. It only takes minutes, and it's perfect every single time. So that's basically what I've got going for this next project. Now the question is, when am I going to start it? As you know, I just had some surgery on my knee about a week ago, and it's gone really well. I'm going through my physical therapy and all that stuff, so I can move around pretty easily with it. I'm not having any trouble, don't need to use any crutches or anything like that. So I'm hoping depending on my schedule, that I can start getting all the wood. I have some of it already, but I need to pick up a few more pieces. And I still have to decide whether or not I'm going to do that roasted maple. If I am, then I'll have to order that and have it shipped to me. And then I got to find some wood for the fretboard. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. And then I can start to actually do the CNC work, which would actually begin in the next episode. But you know, there's so much going on in my schedule right now that we'll see when I can actually get started. So, but part 2 will be the actual, the start of carving this on my CNC machine. So be sure to check that out once I get that posted. In the meantime, though, as always, take care, stay safe, click the thumbs up button, click the thanks button and leave a tip if you're so inclined, if you'd like to help support my channel financially, or visit my YouTube merch store, which is linked down in the below the description. You can purchase plans for guitars, for the tools I use to build guitars, and t-shirts and stuff like that. So that helps to support the channel, and I will see you hopefully in the next episode. Take care.